She earned valuable ranking points. She gained experience that could shape the next stage of her career. And most importantly, she demonstrated that the attention surrounding her wasn't simply hype. It was real. Her tennis was real. Her ability to compete at the highest level was real. And the reaction from the Filipino community was real. But then came the strange aftermath. The stadium that felt almost electric whenever Alex Eala stepped onto the court suddenly became much quieter. The contrast was impossible to miss. When Alex played, people arrived early. They waited outside. They traveled from different cities. They waved Philippine flags. They chanted her name. They filled the seats. When Alex wasn't playing, the same tournament suddenly had a very different atmosphere. That raised an uncomfortable question for the tennis establishment. What happens when a player becomes bigger than the event itself? Because that appeared to be exactly what Toronto had witnessed. Alex Eala had become the attraction. The tournament was simply the stage. And that distinction matters. For years, women's tennis has searched for ways to attract younger audiences, expand into new markets, and create stronger connections between players and international communities. But Alex had achieved something that no marketing campaign could manufacture. She had created an emotional connection. Fans weren't attending because someone told them tennis was important. They were attending because Alex Eala was important to them. That difference is enormous. A promotional campaign can sell tickets once. A genuine connection can bring people back again and again. And the Filipino community had demonstrated exactly that. They didn't need to be convinced. They didn't need discounts. They didn't need complicated advertising campaigns. They simply needed Alex to be on the court. The numbers surrounding her popularity were becoming impossible to ignore. Ticket demand increased whenever she advanced. Crowds grew louder with every victory. Social media engagement surged. Filipino communities across the world began sharing clips, photos, reactions, and messages of support. And suddenly, a tennis player from Manila was becoming one of the most recognizable young faces in the sport. That is why her Toronto run mattered even beyond the results. It wasn't only about how many matches she won. It wasn't only about how far she advanced. It was about what happened around those matches. The stadium changed. The audience changed. The conversation changed. And the business side of tennis began changing with it. Tournament organizers now had evidence that a player with a deeply connected global fan base could create demand far beyond traditional tennis audiences. That opens an entirely different conversation. Broadcast rights, sponsorships, merchandise, international ticket sales, digital engagement. Every one of those areas can be influenced when a player brings an entire community into the sport. And Alex Eala was doing exactly that. She was introducing people to women's tennis who might never have watched a full match before. Families were watching together. Young Filipino athletes were seeing someone from their own background competing against the world's best. Fans who had never considered attending a WTA tournament were suddenly buying tickets. That is how a sporting movement begins. Not with one huge announcement, not with a carefully designed campaign, but with one athlete giving millions of people a reason to care. And Toronto had become the clearest example yet. The most fascinating part was that Alex didn't need to win the entire tournament to prove her impact. In some ways, losing made the story even more revealing, because when she was eliminated, the atmosphere changed almost immediately. That created a comparison no tournament organizer could ignore. Alex playing, Alex not playing. The difference was visible from the stands. One environment was packed with flags and chants. The other was noticeably quieter. One felt like a national celebration. The other felt like a normal professional tennis tournament. And that contrast exposed the extraordinary commercial and cultural pull Alex had already developed at just 21 years old. Think about how unusual that is. Most young players spend years trying to build a following. They climb the rankings. They collect victories. They gradually become recognizable. Alex was doing all of that while simultaneously bringing an entire international community into the sport. She wasn't simply building a fan base. She was activating a diaspora. That distinction could become one of the most important parts of her career. Because Filipino communities exist across North America, Europe, the Middle East, Australia, and Asia. Wherever Alex travels, there's potentially another audience waiting. another group of supporters, another stadium that could suddenly feel like home. Toronto simply happened to be one of the first places where that effect became impossible to ignore. And the question now is what happens next. Because Alex Eala's Toronto story did not end with elimination. If anything, that was only the beginning. The experience gave her something every young player needs. Proof. Proof that she can compete deep into a major WDA 1000 event. Proof that she can handle enormous pressure. Proof that she can perform while thousands of people are screaming her name. And proof that the expectations surrounding her are no longer theoretical. They are real. The tennis world is now watching. Sponsors are watching. Tournament organizers are watching. And millions of Filipino fans are watching even more closely. The next time Alex Eala arrives at a major tournament, nobody can claim they didn't know what was coming. They've seen Toronto. They've seen the crowds. They've seen the flags. They've seen what happens when Alex walks onto a tennis court. And they have also seen what happens when she walks off it. The empty seats told a story just as powerful as the packed stadium. For decades, tennis tournaments have measured success through attendance, television audiences, rankings, prize money, and championship trophies. But Toronto offered another measurement: connection. Alex Eala created a connection between a player and a community that was impossible to manufacture. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson from this entire tournament. The sport doesn't always need another superstar created by the traditional tennis system. The empty seats told a story just as powerful as the packed stadium. For decades, tennis tournaments have measured success through attendance, television audiences, rankings, prize money, and championship trophies. But Toronto offered another measurement: connection. Alex Eala created a connection between a player and a community that was impossible to manufacture. And perhaps that's the biggest lesson from this entire tournament. The sport doesn't always need another superstar created by the traditional tennis system. Sometimes the superstar arrives from somewhere the system wasn't expecting. Sometimes the audience already exists. It simply needs someone to give that audience a reason to gather. Alex Eala may have been that person for millions of Filipinos. And if her Toronto run proved anything, it is that her influence is already much larger than the scoreboard. She came to Canada as a young player trying to compete against the world's best. She left with something far more valuable: